So evaluation, I think that's not common knowledge to a lot of learners. Sometimes it's just checking off, I know this, I know that, I've mastered this skill, but the evaluation is just as important as the learning. So on that note, how would you be able to know if you are ready, if you are done with the evaluation, or will you ever be done with evaluation? Will you ever be able to say, I'm ready for the future because I evaluated my skills? How would you know if you're done or if you're ready?
So two things. And this is going to be an art because it's never going to be a science. It's not going to be, again, para siyang litmus test na parang, lalagay mo ng thermometer ang katawan mo and it says na, you're now ready, right? So it's always going to be, number one, how you feel about yourself. And I will always measure it based on the amount of happiness and satisfaction that you get from what you do. I need to say this because sometimes you might be doing something, but if you're not happy about what you're doing, napilitan ka, or because you were forced to do it, for example, or because you didn't have any choice, there will come a point wherein your learning is going to be stagnant. Your learning is going to stop to a point wherein you think you've already done enough, so why bother doing more? Versus, like, the reason why I chose to become a motivational speaker as my source of living is because it's exactly what I've been wanting since I was in college. When I was in college, I was part of the debate varsity team, and I told to myself, this exactly matches my strength. I think I'm good in communication, but I'm also good in being sociable with other people. And so that kind of passion helped me understand, okay, if that's the case, I will keep on learning. And sometimes even if it hurts my feelings that I have to ask that critique from a person. And sometimes I need to highlight that also. Sometimes the hardest part about evaluating yourself is proactively asking the question from the person because it can hurt your ego. So even if it does, I will ask that question. And sometimes kung ayaw na lang sabihin sa akin straight to my face, I will tell them, sige nga, paki-text na lang. Kung nahihiya kang, for example, sabihin sa akin. Because sometimes you have to adjust to how people communicate. Some people extroverted, some people may be introverted, or they just want to be honest with you also. So that's the first one. The second, I think, is try to be more observant of what other people tell you, even if it's not explicitly stated. So to give an example, pag napapansin mo sa trabaho that a lot of people are asking your help for this specific skill, I think it's a sign that you are extremely doing well in that specific skill. And I need to say that because sometimes we're not self-aware. We don't notice that it's actually where we're good at. Not because people are saying it right in front of your face, but because people are acting the way they want to ask for help. So to give an example also, I didn't know when I was, so my third job was to work for a pharmaceutical company. And I didn't know that time that a part of my job was to do a lot of field work with a lot of medical representatives all over the Philippines. And that means I have to drive with them for 2 to 3 years to visit doctors. And then after I've been doing that for a few months, one of the feedback that I always get from the reps or from the managers is, sabi nila, alam mo John, sabi ng mga reps, nakakatawa ka daw. Like, pag nagda-drive kayo for 1 or 2 hours, you keep on cracking jokes and it makes them feel at ease to the point that they are willing to share what their problems are at work. And that's the reason why I'm able to report those issues and challenges to my boss. I didn't know that I could be that funny until someone said it to me. And the more I listened to people telling that to me, the more I realized, so kung strength ko din pala na maging funny, I can leverage on that strength. And the more I'm conscious about that strength, in the next meeting, I will continue reinforcing that strength because that makes me do better in my job. So being aware of what other people are telling you and being conscious of applying what they're telling to you is part of your evaluation also.
Great. Thank you so much. So it seems like there's really a balance of being sensitive, but not too sensitive, since you said you have to be sensitive to what other people might view your strengths are. And at the same time, you can't be too sensitive because you will be asking for their feedback on those strengths. So great to hear that's definitely going to be useful for our learners today, in terms of how they will be able to determine if the evaluation of their learning is at a certain stagnant point or if they can still continue learning. Great to hear. So we've been discussing all of these skills, how we can apply them, and how we can even evaluate them. So after all of this discussion, can you share why do you think it's important to talk about this at all? So why is it important for the students to think about their future careers and the skills that they need at an early stage? If they're students pa lang sila, why do they need to think about their careers already?
Gosh, there's so many. I wish we have more time to discuss this now. If
Right.
I were to draw this like a bar, so this is like my bar of what your life is. I think schooling, even if it's for 12 years or 14 years, this is just that portion of it. The rest of life is going to be this, right? So what you're actually learning is just a morsel. It's just a drop of blood or water from what you're about to learn in life. And I will also say this, even if you may have championed or na perfect mo ang iyong calculus, which I had a hard time, by the way, when I was in university, for example, even if you've perfected that, there are many moments in life wherein the benefit of learning calculus is not knowing how to derive X and Y. The benefit of learning calculus is the discipline that you needed.
Exactly. Very
to
true.
study that day in and day out, and that even if you fail the first exam, you don't easily lose it so that you can ace the second or third exam so you can finally pass the course. I think most of the learnings that we get from school is the ethics part, the work ethics of what I need to establish in terms of discipline, my grit, my tenacity, etc. The second part, I think, is we don't spend too much time in school planning about the future. Most of the time, it's about, okay, I finished engineering, I finished medicine, but I don't really know what's going to happen in the next 20 or 30 years. And the sad part is, those 20 to 30 years are all going to be unpredictable. So marami sa atin, magaling sa exams, magaling natapos ng summa cum laude, etc. But the ability to identify and anticipate what's going to happen is so low. So I think the planning skill, so part of the planning skill is saying to yourself, okay, kung magaling ako sa math, am I also a good public speaker? Kung magaling ako sa English or sa history, do I also have the social skills? If magaling ako, for example, sa chemistry, do I know how to not give up when things don't go the way I want it to be? These things, you don't learn them easily in schools because there is no module or outline for them. Unless, of course, you're lucky to have teachers who will tell this to you instead. I think for me, Bianca, and maybe you can relate to this, my biggest regret when I was in university was I was so obsessed getting the highest scores in my class, which isn't bad. It's always going to be good if you want to aspire for. So in my school, uno is the highest score. But I get 1.25. I get so obsessed and say, anong ginawa kong mali? Have I spent more 3 hours of time learning this? And then looking back, I wish on top of those ACADS part, I wish I spent more time in my org, because when I spent more time with my org, mas natuto din sana ako na makipag-build ng relationships with people that I may not like, right? And I think that's important because when you enter the corporate world, there will be people who will not like you, and there will be people that you will not like. And even if you're the best in calculus, if you don't know how to handle these people, you will not succeed. That's part of the planning. That's part of the evaluation na third year ka pa lang, dapat may checklist ka na. What are those personalities and traits that people are telling me na kulang ako, na kailangan ko ng galingan so that when I enter the corporate world, kahit magaling ako sa math, hindi pala ako magaling sa teamwork or sa leadership, kailangan ko nang ayusin as early as now. So small things such as, for example, nainggit ako because when I was in university, I wish I participated in more fundraising activities. So every organization usually may fundraising activity, and I didn't join any because I felt it was so basic. But in fundraising, the challenge is not about raising the money. The challenge in fundraising is needing to talk to people who probably don't want to even meet up with you, wanting to prove to them that there is a reason why you have to give us 10,000 pesos, right? Executing that on a piece of paper, on an email, on a PowerPoint presentations, those are the things that you learn. And those are actually what you'll be doing when you enter the corporate world. I wish I spent more time also on those things on top of my ACADS.
And I think you already touched upon it, but it seems like the other things you wanted to focus on aside from your academics tie back to the 3 skills that you shared earlier. In the case of the fundraising event organization, you would need communication
skills. That's right.
and critical thinking skills. So it's great to see how those all tie in together.